What happens to my Social Security benefit if I stop working? We're going to dive into that. There's an article in CNBC. They said, what's your benefit going to be if you average $50,000 a year, or if you make $50,000 a year? I can't remember. And unfortunately, the article didn't show you that. You had to watch a video, and it was just weird. So I was doing a live stream the other day, and I said, okay, let's dive into this, where I show you how easy it is to figure this out. And I said, let me do a video on this again. I've done videos on this before. It's probably been a year since I've done a video on this. So let's dive into this. All right. So the first thing we're trying to accomplish to get our Social Security benefit, we have to understand what our average indexed monthly earnings are. All right, our AIME, your average indexed monthly earnings. The reason I highlight that is because the money you made in previous tax years. An example, I made $12,000 when I was a private first class in the infantry in 1990. All right, $12,000. That was how much I made and I paid taxes on in 1990. And for simplicity, we're going to say that has been adjusted under the average wage index increases. I'll talk about that in just a second, to be equal to 50,000 in 2020 numbers. And I don't know if that's spot on or not, but just for simplicity, just hear me out for just a second. Let's say I made $22,000 in 2000, the year 2000. We'll say the same thing. That equals 50,000 in today's dollars, all right? And again, I don't know if these numbers are spot on or not, but that is based on the 12,000 is going to be in index based on what's called AWI, your average wage index. And essentially what the government is doing here is this, okay, how much did the average wages increase from 1990 till today? That's your average wage index, and thus we're going to take the amount of money you made in a certain year, in 1990 in this case, and we're going to adjust it based on the average wage index from those, 40, 30 years. And that will give us an equivalent of what it's worth today. So essentially what that's saying is 12,000 in 1990 is the equivalent of 50,000 today. All right, and so what happens here is we take your top 35 years of indexed earnings. Top 35 years of indexed earnings. So for simplicity, 12,000 is equal to 50,000 today. 22,000 is equal to 50,000 today, and so on and so on. And for simplicity, we're just going to say I made 35 years of 50,000 a year adjusted with indexing. So we're going to say we have 50,000 a year each year. I just made 50,000 a year. So again, that was on an equivalent time frame. 1990 is 12,000, 2000 is 22,000, 2010 is 32,000, such and such. All right, so I just made the equivalent of 50,000 each and every year. Now, it matters not if I worked 30 years or 50 years. It matters not. It only matters. They take the top 35 years of earnings, and they times that by 35. So in this case, we're going to say I worked for 35 years. On average, I made 50,000 a year, and we're going to take that. We're going to times those together as $1.75 million of adjusted total indexed earnings. So the problem here is I worked 40 years. I pay taxes. My employer paid taxes. I only get credit for 35. If I only work 30 years, I still have to look at it as if it's a 35-year time frame. We'll go into 30 years here in just a second. But the simplicity is that even if you work 50 years, it doesn't matter. They only take the top 35. The other taxes are just taxes you paid that you don't get credit for and your employer paid that goes into the Social Security Trust Fund. They're just taking your top 35 years of indexed earnings. You're timesing that by 35, and they give us this number right here, 1.75 million, which is our total indexed earnings. Now, we divide that by 420, and the reason we divide that by 420 because, again, we have 35 years of indexed earnings. Well, 35 times 12 is 420, which is what we use to solve our AIME, our average indexed monthly earnings. And that's what we're trying to solve, because everything revolves around this one thing right here, your average indexed monthly earnings. And so what we have here is we take our trusty calculator and we say, what is 1.75 divided by 420? I think it's 4166. Yep, 4166. So our AIME is 4166. Now that is not our benefit. That's not our benefit. We have bend points here. And the first minus 960 is times that by 90%. And the rest, we'll have to figure that out here in just a second. The rest of you times by 32%. There's a third bend point here in just a second, but just bear with me. 3,200. 3206 times by 0.32. All right. So the next, I think, is amount above $5,583. You times that by 15%. In this case, we don't need to worry about the third bend point. So remember, there's 3 bend points. It's 90%, 32%, and 15%. What that simply means is how much of your AIME, 4166 is your AIME, will your actual benefit be? And what that means is the first $960 of your AIME, you're going to get 90% of that as a part of your benefit. So we take 1226, well, I already had it on here. And 960 times 0.9, I think it's 864. Let's take a gander here. 960 times 0.9 is 864. So in this case, we take these two numbers because the first $960, we get 90% of that as part of our Social Security benefit. The next amount above 960 up to $5,583 in 2020. It changes every year. We get 32% of. So we got 3,206 above the 960 is equals our AIME. So in this case, we got 1026 plus 864. That is going to be our benefit plus 1026. So our benefit here is going to be $1,890 a month at our full retirement age, which we're just going to say is 67. All right. So in this case, we have $890 a month at our full retirement age, which is 67. Now, it could be lower than that if we took it at 7 or higher. If we took it at 70, it would be 24% above that. So we take 1890 times 1.24. It'd be 2343 at 70. Not adjusting with inflation, by the way. And 1890 minus 30%. It would be 1323 at 62. All right. But this is all that matters. So our full retirement age, that's what we're going to be basing our Social Security amount on, 1890. How we got that again is we based it on our average index monthly earnings. All right, so now we know 1890 is our benefit. So what happens if we stop working a couple years and we don't make $50,000 a year? All right, so we're going to stop working in we'll say year 32. All right, let me just dry this off. So remember, 1890 is our benefit if we work at least 35 years, where we averaged $50,000 a year of indexed annual benefits. I hope that indexing makes sense because that's critical. All right, so now let's say, Josh, I can't stand my boss. I'm being forced to listen to propaganda from Black Lives Matter and Antifa. I got to leave. So now I only have 32 years at $50,000 a year because I got to cut out. I got to cut out 3 years before my 35 years are up. So what happens here? It's actually quite simple. We take 32, we times by 50,000. 32 by 50,000. That gives us 1.6 million. All right, 1.6 million, but we still divide by 420. Because even though we only have 32 years, we still use our top 35 years of indexed annual earnings. 3 of those years will be big fat goose eggs. You don't divide by 32 times 12. You still divide by 420. We don't have 35 years. We only have 32. We still use 35, which means we have 3 years of no earnings at all, nothing. But we still have 1.6 million total. All right, you don't divide by 32, you divide by 35 or 420, because there are still, the calculation always uses 35 years of index earnings, your top 35 years of index earnings, even if part of those top 35 years are big fat goose eggs. So we got 1.6 million, we divide that by 420. So now our AIME is 3809. All right, so again, the first 960 times 0.9. I need my calculator to figure out what 3809 is by minus 960. 2849. All right, so we know that this is going to be 864, and this is going to be, I do not know. So let's take a gander. 2849 times 0.32, 912. And I think I can do that. 1776. Oh, 1776. Ooh, America, baby. Yeah. As the Hodge twins say. Yeah. 1776. That's going to be a month. Ooh, Pablo. There you go. Power the like button for Pablo. A month at my FRA. So the difference between this right here, 1890 and 1776 is what? 114 a month. All right, so 114 a month difference for having worked 3 less years. All right, so 114 a month, we times that by 12, that's 1368 a year. So the question is it worth it to stay in your crappy old job with propaganda, with a crazy boss, blah, 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 and a mindless endeavor to generate an extra 1368 a year? I don't think so. But let's just say you live for 25 more years. So you take your Social Security at your full retirement age, you're going to live for another 25 years, which would put you at 92. Not likely, but just say you did. So what we do is we take 1368 a year, we times that by 25, and we say, okay, 1368 times 25, that gives us 34,000 more a year. Now we're not adjusting these for inflation, mind you, but still that gives us 34,000 a year, and with a small cost of living adjustment. I use 2.4% because that's what the trustees report says. We're not giving this cost of living adjustments, but either way, $34,000. So it made you. So for you working an extra 3 years in your crappy old job, you netted $34,000 more of total Social Security benefits over the course of your 25 years of retirement. Is that worth it? I don't think so. So the question now comes in, how do we figure out that as they quantify that? Well, it's simple. You have 2,080 hours, all right, 2,080 hours. Hello, handsome. Pa. 2,080 hours in a typical full employment work year. You work 2,080 hours. So we're going to take 2,080 times that by 3, because remember, we quit 3 years early. That's 6,240 hours. 6,000, let's erase this right here, 240 hours. I'll use this. That we did not work when we quit early. So that's 6,240 hours extra work netted us another $34,000 of income. I hope you see where I'm going with this. So 6,240 hours netted us an extra $4,000 of Social Security income. 34,000 divided by 6,000. What did I say? 240. Yeah, 240. Meant that we worked our extra 6,240 hours. We were making $5.45 an hour. So the extra 3 years of wages, of earnings that we worked netted us $5.45 an hour. That's it. I don't even think that's the minimum wage anymore. So essentially, by you working those extra 3 years, you were working for less than minimum wage just to goose up your Social Security. I don't think it's worth it. Now, you might be enjoying it, but could you do something else with those extra 6,240 hours? I mean, if we look at, what's the name, Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hour thing, which, I think there's some issue with, but I still think it makes sense. The more you focus on something, the better you get. you're 62% away of the 10,000 hours to achieve superiority in whatever the thing you want. Could you have done something else with those extra 6,240 hours to enjoy your life as opposed to staying your crappy old job to net you an extra $34,000? I think so. Now, everyone says, but Josh, how are you going to work? What kind of income you're going to get? What, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. We're just talking about what happens if you quit. What happens to your Social Security if you quit? We're not talking about the other things. We can certainly do that for sure. But in this case, if you quit before 35 years, what happens to your Social Security? And I just showed you. I mean, the proof is just right there. There's no two ways around that. The only thing we could discount is we are not adjusting these with cost of living adjustments. But the cost of living adjustments go on both sides. I mean, it goes both on quitting 32 years and 35 years. I mean, the cost of living adjustments do work on both sides. So it's not as if we're giving a short shift to quitting early. We're just saying at the end of the day, we're not using that. But, it's roughly the same. I don't know. So there you go. Now, if you're making $100,000 a year, and now you go to $20,000 a year, what happens? Well, it's the same process. Once you get a significant amount of years of index earnings, working extra 2 or 3 years isn't going to make it or break it. It's just not. It's just not going to do that. Now, if you work a couple extra years at $100,000 as opposed to zeros like we showed here, will that help? Sure, it absolutely. You'd make, instead of making $1,890, you'd probably have about $1,950 or so. So you'd make another $50 or $60 a month. Again, but you're only talking, what's that, $2,000, $2,400, $2,500 more a year? I mean, $200 a month times 12 is $2,400 a year. Is that worth it? I don't think so. But anyway, hope this helps. Love to hear your comments. Put some questions in there because this is a big deal. I get this question a lot. What happens if I quit my crappy old job to my Social Security? Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks now.